Okay, so I was in a therapy session yesterday and it kind of sparked up an idea for today's episode. I knew I was going to be filming one today, but going into it, I honestly wasn't really sure. I had some ideas and I was going to settle on one. But for the episodes, I really like to speak of things that are of the time or things that are really prominent at the moment. So when it came up yesterday and I was reflecting on it, it made me realize that I wanted to come on here and talk about it. Recently, I've been having this really intense craving for a romantic relationship. I just so badly want a boyfriend, and I didn't really know where it was coming from, but then when I was talking about it yesterday, it started to make a lot of sense. And it's going to be putting me in a bit of a vulnerable position when I talk about it, but I'm not coming on here for pity or anything like that. I just want to talk about it as a way of self reflection and then also to make people feel maybe a little less alone. If I can help just one person, that is all that matters. So today I'm kind of just going to be talking about the different things that I think play a part into why this has been so prominent recently. Also, if you're watching the video format, my hair looks so bad from the back. It's none of my business. It's none of my business. I just put this headband on for the episode, but it looks awful, guys. Anyways, let's get started. So for the first reason, this is kind of an obvious one, but it's the fact that I have never really experienced anything romantically. I have been in one relationship before when I was 16, but it just wasn't a good situation at all. It wasn't a good relationship. It was very toxic and it took a lot of time to finally heal from it. And I remember when he expressed interest in me, I went straight into it full force because I had never really had anyone interested in me romantically. It felt so good to finally get attention in that way, and it felt so validating. And even though I did have feelings for him, I think I clinged onto it a little more because I didn't want to lose the one guy that actually had feelings for me. And yes, like I had little things here and there in elementary school, but all of high school, I just never really got romantic attention. And it made me feel so badly about myself, and it really affected my confidence and my self esteem. And at the time when I was in the relationship, I didn't even realize that it was a toxic situation because I didn't know any better. I had never experienced it. I thought it was all normal, but I was being manipulated. It wasn't healthy. And since then, I haven't really experienced anything. And yes, when I think on the past, I don't think I was ever in a place where I really could be in a relationship, either because I wasn't in a good mental state or I just wasn't mature enough to handle something like that. Because in order to be in a relationship, you need to have enough love for yourself in order to give it to someone else. And I just wasn't in a place where I could do that for someone. I just was never feeling good enough about myself. Anyway, so that lack of experience in comparing myself and seeing everyone around me being in a relationship, or even if they're not currently in a relationship, the fact that they've even experienced something romantically, at least that's long term or positive, it makes me feel so envious and like I'm missing out. And yes, I'm happy single. I'm happy with where I'm at, which is why I think it would be such an amazing addition because I'm finally at a place where I think I'm ready for that. I talked about this a little bit in my 26 goals for 2026 episodes. So if you want to go give that a listen, go ahead. But I struggled with a pretty bad eating disorder last year and I've been in recovery and things have been so much better. And I just want to say if you're dealing with something similar or you have dealt with something similar, you're not alone and I promise it gets better. Recovery is the best decision that I have ever made for myself. And it's the best decision you will ever make for yourself as well. Anyway, so when I was sick, I have this numbness feeling, and I think I've been kind of experiencing a shock of all these feelings that are coming back because I never really felt anything. It almost feels like I'm making up for lost time. Because for so long I wasn't really feeling anything, now that my body finally has the energy to care, it's kind of hitting me in a shocking way. I'm not used to feeling things, and I think it feels more intense than it did before. And maybe it's not necessarily more intense. I think it's just because I'm not used to feeling anything at all. So I'm kind of going through this transition period where I'm adjusting to caring about things again. Growing up, I always felt different. I always kind of experienced imposter syndrome no matter where I was or who I was with. I think it's because from a young age, there was kind of this label put on me of being small because I was really short. I was a really small kid, and I don't really know why that happened because I was born a normal size. I wasn't a premature baby. I was born at term. And then when it comes to my development, I hit all the milestones at the right age. I started walking at the right age and everything. Then I was always kind of outside of the percentile when I started growing. Like for context, I'm pretty sure when I started 7th grade, which means I was 12. I was 4'4" or 4'5". I was tiny, tiny. So I was always seen as the short kid and the small kid. Even like I played softball when I was younger, and they all called me Speedy. I had a nickname. My nickname was Speedy because I ran really quickly and because I was really small. And yeah, I would just feel really bad about it because people would treat me differently, or I experienced some bullying just because I was immature physically and mentally. I just didn't develop quickly. I was a really late bloomer. And again, I still don't really know where that comes from because it's not a genetic thing. None of my siblings experienced that. None of my parents experienced anything like that. And that kind of just played into that even more. It was like, why am I experiencing this and no one else is? Why is it just me? And it's not even the short thing. There were also things that I dealt with when I was younger that just made me feel weird or out of the ordinary. For example, I have anxiety, but it's been there since I was younger. It's been there basically my entire life. And obviously, the anxiety has changed over time when it comes to what I'm anxious about and the level and the extremity. But it was there when I was younger, and it just made me feel weird. I remember I was in elementary and I joined this support group at the school that would happen during lunchtime for people who dealt with anxiety. And it's just little by little, there were these things that were building up that made me feel different, that didn't make me feel like everyone else. I've also dealt with emetophobia for as long as I can remember, which is basically the phobia of throwing up. And no one around me dealt with that. None of my family dealt with that. And until a few years ago, I didn't know this was actually a phobia that other people dealt with. I thought I was just weird. I was embarrassed, and I didn't fully understand it myself, which made it harder to accept. So, all of these things were playing a part during my development and during my childhood, and they even stick with me now. For context, now I'm 19. I turned 20 in like 6 months, which is a whole other thing that's literally insane. But when I was in high school, I have memories of just feeling different. It didn't matter how much I had in common with the people around me, or if I acted the same as them, or dressed the same as them. I always just felt different. I was so used to people treating me like a little kid and treating me like I was different that it stuck with me. And whether it was real or not, at a grown age, it felt like it was there. I think I became paranoid and I started to overthink. And I got so used to being treated that way that it just stuck with me. Even now, sometimes I feel like I have imposter syndrome just to being a teenager. I still call myself a teenager because I'm 19, so give me that, please. But yeah, it's still there sometimes. I think with time, with my confidence having grown, it's gotten better, but it's still there sometimes. Even when I see people from my old high school, because I go to a college that's kind of in the same area as my high school, so a lot of people from my graduating class or people in grades before are now at that college. Sometimes I see them and I think that they're still thinking of me as the way they did in high school when I was really unhappy. I didn't feel good about myself. I didn't really have anyone that I was insanely close with, which is a whole other thing. I could do a whole other episode talking about my high school experience. But the reason I'm bringing this up is I always felt so different. And I think now it's hitting me more than ever that I want a romantic relationship, not just for the obvious reasons, not just to feel supported and have someone to love and who loves you back, and to have someone you can rely on in that way. And obviously, because the lacking of it being something I've never had. But I think I also want it so badly as a way to prove to myself that I'm not broken and like I'm not too much. I feel like there's been times where I got a vibe that someone had feelings for me and then they didn't. And then I started to question, is anyone ever going to view me in that way? Are guys only ever going to view me as a friend? And yes, I have people express interest in me here and there, but I'm never interested back. And it's like, am I ever going to find someone who wants me the way that I want them? I just want the reassurance that I don't have too much baggage and that I'm capable of being loved. And it sounds so depressing, but it's true. I felt different my whole life, and I feel like I never experienced anything like that, and that just played a bigger role in it. And then I had the eating disorder, which didn't help. I was finally reaching a place where I felt like I was confident and like I was like everyone else around me. And then I dealt with that, and that was just an extra thing. And then there was the OCD and a bunch of things that I still deal with now. And it just makes me feel like I'm too much. It feels like there's too much there, or there's too much history there, and I just get scared that a guy isn't going to want me because of my past and the stuff that I've dealt with, because they don't want to deal with all that. They want it to be simple. And I'm not saying that it doesn't have to be simple. Like, I think I could be a really good girlfriend. I think I could be really supportive, and it's something I want so badly. But then I always have that thought, like, what if someone is judgmental or makes assumptions about the stuff that I've dealt with and they don't want to be with me for that reason? So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest parts is I want to be wanted. I want to experience the feeling of being wanted. I want the reassurance that that is something that I can experience, because I want to get married. I want to have a family. I don't know if I want to have kids yet, but I mean, I want to get dogs and get a cat and have a husband, and I just want to live a life like that. But I just want the reassurance that I am going to find that. And in times of doubt, I kind of try to lean into my faith a little bit because it gives me a lot of peace. And I try to just stick with the ideology of everything happening for a reason, that things happen exactly in the way that they're supposed to. Because when I look back on my life, there are things that have happened in such a perfect way that I know deep in me that there is a higher power behind that. And I try to put my anxieties into that and just lean into it a little more. I've especially tried to do that a little more recently because it really reduces the anxiety, knowing that it's already planned for me, and the reason I want it so badly is because it's already a part of my future. But it still gets scary because people will come up to me because they see me and they like how my face looks, but no one has really gotten to know me on a deep level. And I'm worried that if someone starts to see that side of me, they're not gonna want me anymore. I don't know. It sounds really sad, but I realized yesterday this has really been weighing on me, and I didn't realize how badly I needed to reflect on it. I just want to be wanted. And then also with the eating disorder, if you've dealt with something similar, maybe you'll understand when I say that it feels like you lost time. I dealt with it for about a year, and it feels like I lost a year in my life, so it almost feels like I need to catch up. So I think that's why the relationship thing is hitting me so hard. It just makes me think, like, if I didn't deal with what I dealt with last year, would I maybe be in a relationship now? Because then I was not in the right mindset. I was not healthy physically and mentally. I wouldn't be able to assert myself and to actually provide love to someone else because I didn't have enough love for myself. But then also, I started to think now things are better than they were before the disorder. So even though it was a terrible thing to have to go through, I know that it happened for a reason, because now I'm stronger and I'm happier, and my relationship with body image and food, it's obviously a constant progression, but it's so much better than it was even before the disorder. Sorry, I'm getting a little off track right now, but there are just so many things that play into this want for a relationship. And when you really start to break it down and think about it, you start to see all of the underlying layers and reasons and factors. Anyway, so I think now the reason why it's hitting so hard is because I think I'm finally at a place where that is something that I can add to my life that will be an addition to my life and not something that I need to rely on to be happy. Like, when I think back to years ago, I wanted a relationship really badly, but it was because I was unhappy and I wasn't confident in myself, and I thought that a relationship could fix that. But you need to be okay on your own first, and you need to be happy with yourself first before you can add someone else into the equation. And yeah, and I think that's why I've been feeling it so extremely, is because I think I'm at a place where now I can finally add that to my life. Anyways, I kind of just wanted to talk about that. If you have been dealing with similar feelings, if I helped only one person, I am so glad. And just know you are worthy of love. You are going to find it. The reason you want it so badly is because it's already part of your future. If you have dealt with these things or felt these things, just know you're not alone. I've dealt with them. Other people have probably dealt with them. It just isn't always a super open conversation. And what I do love about social media is, in recent years, over time, people have just gotten more and more vulnerable and really showed the reality of things online. And I think that's really beautiful because so many people feel understood and less alone. I remember when I was dealing with my emetophobia and I felt crazy for it. I didn't even know there was a name for it. I had no idea. I saw a YouTube video of this girl talking about it and I realized I have that too. There's a name for it. There's other people who deal with it because there was no one in my circle, in my close proximity that dealt with it. I never heard anyone talk about it. And then you start to realize social media is a really beautiful thing sometimes because it brings strangers together and you start to realize how many other people also deal with similar things. And it's so beneficial and it helps to know that you're not alone. It is so validating and it makes you feel seen. So I just wanted to express that because it has been really, really heavy on my mind the past 24 hours. The second the topic brought up, I knew it was going to be something I was going to talk about today. Anyways, I'm just going to keep going, live my life, and I know that it's going to stumble across me and come to me when the time is right. Hopefully that happens soon. Sorry, I don't know why I just put that in British. Hopefully that time is soon. Anyways, I know it was a little bit of a shorter one today. I always try to make my episodes quality over quantity. But thank you so much if you listen until the end. I love you more than you know, and I'll see you next week.